Hey Kapil, sorry, I don't know if it broke up or something, but
So,
essentially,
I guess
sorry.
the question for you is that you separate the truth from the um, day-to-day or even worldly pursuits that one is having in their life.
Yeah,
And why do you do that?
uh, I guess I feel like I've almost been chosen. Like it's choiceless the way I sort of religiously read your work, but at the same time, I have to earn money. And I guess my question is like, how do people with that real obsessional desire to understand the truth behind things? How do they navigate the work? The
Yeah, but
kind of working
isn't
world.
isn't
I can't
you
make
said
money
that
off truth. Right?
you're
Go on,
trying to
sorry.
make you're trying to make money, right?
Well, yeah, I need money to survive. I'd like to make a lot of money, to be honest, but yeah.
Okay. So, are there not truths there? Is making money done through all lies? Is making money done through things that don't work?
But isn't the true cause of kind of money is kind of devoting yourself to your talent or your true natural
Okay, so if
desires?
you
And if
devote
my
yourself to your talent, is that not true?
yes, that is truth, but
So you have, and you're not alone. I don't think that this will ever be understood, and the reason is because of the conditioning and brainwashing. Human beings view truth as spiritual, and they should. And the reason that they should is because all they've ever, when they've even heard that term, that word, it's always been in the setting of spirituality. So I have no complaint that people would do that because that's all they know. But I'm not talking about truth because I don't believe in spirituality. So if I don't subscribe to spirituality, then truth for me can't be spiritual because I don't subscribe to the entire domain. So there's no such thing as truth over here and your pursuits over here. That doesn't exist. I mean, even if you open your door to your house and you have a key, that key unlocks the door. That's truth. A key which doesn't fit the door is not going to open the door. I mean, and that's as mundane and colloquial and worldly as it gets. Is opening a door.
I understand that, but I guess I've heard you say that the kind of the true cause of success is a devotional pursuit of your passions, right? But if my passion is reading your work, how that's not going to equate to money in the real world, right?
So the truth is that for whatever reason you have an affinity for the words that I write,
Yep,
and you also have an affinity to earn money in the world.
yep.
That's the truth. Okay? There's no right or wrong or good or bad with either of those things. And if both of those are the truth in your situation, then it's also the truth that you must discover what needs to be discovered in order to satisfy your own desires to make money in the world. So it would be untrue based upon what you've already said. It would be untrue to say that um, you should only read my words and forget about making money. And the reason that would be untrue is because the fact remains that you do have a desire to make a lot of money in the world. So if you do have a desire to make a lot of money in the world, then how can attention not be going there as well? Since it is one of your desires.
He who chases two rabbits catches neither, right?
Well, it's all about context, right? So that's a contextual statement. It is you have to deal with reality. Human beings are not cardboard cutouts. if you have a desire for two things or nine things, then you have a desire for two things or nine things. That's not negotiable. Meaning, in the sense that that exists for you, and if it exists for you, to try to turn one of them off is not truth, because that is forced denial, and forced denial is garbage.
Yeah. Thank you.
So there's no conflict in what you're saying. You have created a conflict for yourself because you felt like you have to choose. I mean, do you not eat and drink? Do you only choose one? Do you not go multiple ways to work? Do you not? There's 7 million things that you do that are not based upon choose this or that. So you have to abandon anything that you've done to turn my work into like prescriptions, which everyone does, and it's never going to stop, and it is what it is, and like, but that's what you're doing, and everyone does.
I thank you for having me on. Good evening, sir. I have a question regarding exposure, whereby I don't know whether some things are worth observing or looking. I can't hear a thing. I don't know if I'm.
What don't you understand about exposure?
Okay. There are times when I'm having maybe a habit or a situation I'm going through, and I tend to ask myself, sometimes the opportunity arises whether to completely ignore this thing that keeps arising, or whether to observe it carefully in order to get over it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, that isn't what I mean. You can interpret it however you want. That's everyone's own freedom to do so. Um, but that isn't what I'm talking about with exposure. With exposure, for me, it's exposure to truth.
Okay. The truth about, let's say, a bad habit, or let's say you have a situation that keeps arising that I expose myself to work.
No. You, but you threw it with the truth there like it was a rotten apple. You just threw it. You just threw the word truth in that statement like it was a pair of used shoelaces. Okay, that wasn't the truth. Wasn't the center stage of that comment. That was just tossed in there. Um, you don't know the truth behind your head. So how are you going to expose yourself to the truth?
Okay. I expose myself to your work, for instance, for a long time. I've been consuming your work, and then there are things that have been in my life that have not been, let's say, to my benefit. And when they come up, when they arise, I ask myself whether to observe them more carefully or whether to just look at where I'm like, I ask myself whether I can just go go through them, like ignore them. I don't know if that is.
But those are, and that's fine. But though you're talking about two different things, that isn't that isn't. Once again, you don't need to take my lead or anything, but you're asking me the question, so I have to answer according to me. That is not what I am talking about when it comes to exposure. And the reason that I'm talking about exposure is because that is the original question that you asked was related to exposure. To me, when I speak of exposure, I'm talking about the human being is constantly exposed to the world. And the human being is constantly exposed to the world, therefore he's constantly exposed to lies. And therefore he becomes a lie. And he doesn't become that because he wants to, but he has no choice. So wisdom lies in exposing oneself to the truth, not to follow something or to do, 5 steps or to do none of that garbage. I don't have any respect for any of that stuff. I'm simply talking about exposure. You didn't do all the, you did consciously, even though you've done a lot of stuff, the way that you are, the things that you believe, the things that you think, those are not the product of you having done a bunch of stuff. Those are the product of your exposure. And because your exposure, not just you, but all humans, is to lies, not intentional lies, but lies nonetheless, then you have no choice but to become that. And you don't have to try to become that. That's what you're exposed to. Whereas if you expose yourself to the truth, in all honesty, if you expose yourself to the truth 1% of the time, and 99% of the time you expose yourself to the world, there's not even a competition there. Now, the only thing that can be said about that is fine. 1% is better than 0%. So yes, you can. So that is true.
Okay. May I just when my mind then when my mind brings up things that I've been consuming your work, let's say sometimes a lot, and my mind brings up things that give me that opportunity to decide. I don't know if does it just flow into perfect.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Number one, I don't know. Number two, I don't care, because the mechanistic details of how these things happen are beyond the intellect, this very small, shamelessly small intellect of human beings. So don't even try. And the more you try, the more you'll go deeper into the intellect. This is not a mechanical thing. So I have no idea what routes it takes and what X, Y, and Z happens and what the technical details. Even to open that door is to open the door to confusion.
I hear you talk about prescriptions a lot. Now, someone who approaches a life day to day gets some exposure from the podcasts they hear, from the books they read. Now, my question is, when someone is approaching in some situation in their life, they are like, let me give you an example. Let's say for happiness equation, it's like once I say that I don't want to be happy because I want to be successful, or I'm not happy because I know too much. Again, I'm saying that, okay, if I'm actually knowledgeable or I have that knowledge, then why am I not happy? So these kind of things kind of stand as contradictory. And I'm approaching life day to day. I can't have an obsolete decision. So does anyone have to have an obsolete definition in the first place? And if yes, then how to incorporate it?
I don't understand your question. You're all over the place.
Do you want me to say it again?
Well, if you say it again, I won't understand it again.
Okay, let me make another example. So let's say I know that happiness is something that is based on work, like you have to work on it. Now, I can say that I am not.
No, but you use the word know very confidently. What if your knowing is complete BS? What if happiness is not something that you have to work on to get?
Now, let's say that I've received a prescription that
you didn't respond to the question. Am I talking to a wall? You didn't respond to that. Did you hear what I said? Hello?
Yeah, you said like.
Did you hear what I'm asking? Did you hear what I said? Because it seems to me like you're only responding to yourself. And that's fine, but then why are you calling in? Did you hear what I said?
I did.
Okay. Well, you didn't respond to it.
Been consuming your content and many other so-called spiritualist content, but I've realized that nothing I've learned, nothing I've experienced have got me anywhere. So I just had this thought that maybe I'm not ready, maybe I've not had the moment to say that enough is enough. And after watching all those Krishnamurti videos and your tweets, I've realized that I've got nowhere. So should I keep on suffering, or should I know you don't like the shoulds and should not, but I don't know what should I do. I should just stop consuming content and be what I'm and keep on doing what I'm doing, or should I do something else?
I mean, it's a fair question, and it's actually the thing that everyone suffers from. You not having got anywhere is because you think that watching a bunch of stuff can get you somewhere. And you think that because that's what you've been brainwashed by society to believe. That if you do this and listen to this and follow this and read this, that that'll get you somewhere. No one's getting anywhere in this world. No one. No one. No one. And they can read, and it doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't read and listen to, they can listen to whatever they want. It's fine. And there's no, like I said, there's no evil in doing that. But the belief that that's going to get someone somewhere, well, that's fine if what they call somewhere is they just enjoy it and it gives them a sense of, enjoyment or pleasure to listen to it. And if they call that, quote, somewhere, then yeah, then maybe they do get somewhere because that's their somewhere. So if it's just enjoyment and you like it, just like listening to, some nice soft music in the background, does that mean that nobody should listen to nice music? Of course not, because it's enjoyable for them. But if the question is it going to get you somewhere of permanence, get you somewhere of lasting X, Y, and Z? No. Now, should someone believe me? No. They shouldn't believe me. They should examine for their own experiences. So if you ask me, should you listen? Should you do this or that? I have no answer for you because I have no interest in making you a student. I don't want any students. So I don't want to give you advice because I think advice is the whole problem. You have to deal with reality. And I think that the reality that you have come to without anyone giving it to you, without you having read it in a book, but by your own direct experience was the first thing that you said. You have read this and looked at that and whatever it is. and it hasn't gotten you anywhere. Okay, well, that's your reality. I think that's the lead that you must take, not my lead or someone else's lead.
Kapil, sorry, my connection was bad earlier. I actually wanted to talk about conditioning. So, as I was growing up, obviously, I got conditioned based on my surroundings, my parents, whatever I saw, and whatever the situation was. But at the present, I don't like what I've been conditioned into, and I've been feeling very incomplete because of that. And I want to know how I can reprogram that conditioning, or is it even possible to change the way I think or the way I am? Um, because certain things have become part of my nature. Um, is it even possible, or is it just part of my bones now?
You know, it all depends upon what's acceptable to you. Because if I tell you it's part of your bones, and then you go on with your life, then it's acceptable to you. If I tell you it's not, then you might do. If you need motivation to do that, then you don't really want it deep enough, anyways. And it isn't a good thing or a bad thing to want it deep enough or not want. It's not something that anybody should do. It's up to them. But the conditioning is something that every human being is suffering from. Um, I think the most destructive part of that is to not even know that one is conditioned. So, what I will tell you is that you don't have even 1% of idea of how conditioned you are. Now, a helpful thing in your benefit is that at least your mind is open to the fact that you are conditioned, which is far beyond the vast majority of humans to begin with. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to what's actually there. Now, if you wish to further explore that, you can, and if not, you don't have to. But it isn't a question of like, is it possible? Is it not possible? Should I do it? Those things don't go anywhere.
Hello, I have seen a clip of yours. Speaker was asking about flow state, and you were saying you cannot reach it because you are chasing it. And you have also said that you will have what you cannot not have. The desire has to be there. So my question is, what is the difference between desire and chasing something?
You know what the problem with what you said is?
No, no. That's why I'm asking.
No, you're not asking to know what the problem with what you said.
Oh, okay. So I want to know what's the difference between desire and chasing
repeating
something.
the question isn't going to change anything. Do you know what the
No,
problem?
you asked me if I want to know.
No, I didn't ask you
if I want to know.
I asked you, do you know what the problem with what you said is?
No, I don't know.
Okay, that's an answer. Okay.
Yes.
The problem with what you said is that you so easily and concisely paraphrased what I said into a snippet. And listen, on a practical level, I understand. You cannot repeat the entire discourse, and I understand that. From a practical perspective, you must talk about snippets. And if it was just that would be fine. If it was just a practical thing. The problem is that it is the practical thing. You actually believe that it is a snippet. You actually believe that what I said, you hardened it into this quote. And you turned the quote into like this solidified thing, independent of the depth from which it came. And then you asked a question based upon the fragment that you separated from the entire context. So it's kind of like taking a drop from the ocean and taking the drop and then putting it in the freezer and turning the drop into, a drop of ice. Then asking questions about the solidified form of ice. You've lost the ocean. So I can't answer a question that is based upon you having reduced something big and wide into something that is a snippet, which has not just been done for practicality purposes, but you actually buy into the snippet form.
Kapil, I flip-flop between wanting to do more with my life and possibly taking on more stress versus, I don't know, retiring and, cutting myself off and no stress. How can I think about it or resolve it?
That isn't a resolvable thing because you're approaching it from the intellectual and prescriptive methodological perspective.
Periods of highs and lows. So 1 week I will feel very energetic and hopeful. And then the next week I might feel more down. And I've noticed that this seems to be a recurrent pattern. And my question is a sign that you're getting closer to the truth that the amplitudes of these highs and lows lessens?
My honest answer to you is I don't think that you should ask any questions because you're an intellectual. You asked intellectual questions last time as well. And if I didn't tell you, I'll tell you now. I don't think that you'll ever not be an intellectual. I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, it'll be at least 20, 30 years. You don't have the bandwidth to understand from a non-intellectual perspective, and it isn't good or bad. We're all made differently. Everyone's nature is different, and no one's bad and no one's good, and you're not wrong. But having said that, I must say things as they are. I'm not here to be nice or rude or what I say things as they are. So what I will tell you is you aren't going to understand.
Hello, Kapil. You spoke a moment ago about how 99% of people sort of waste their lives. And my question is, what is the 1% of lives of individuals that is not wasted? Thank you.
I don't remember saying 99%, but if I did, then I did. I don't remember what I said. I think the person who asked me that said that, but I'm not going to say that I didn't write that somewhere, but I'd be more like 100%. I wouldn't even say 99.
And if I may ask a quick follow-up on that,
But hang on, I have to say something though. Hang on. Even though it's 100%, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that one should not. That has to be very clear. That isn't a springboard for me then to say, because you're wasting your life, then you should do this, or you should stop, or you should. I don't have a message for anyone. I just want that to be clear. The sky is blue, right? That isn't my way of saying the sky is blue, and if only the sky did this, it would be a better shade of blue. That has to be clear. Me stating something as the way that I feel that it is not at the same time me stating that it shouldn't be for someone else. That's up to them. On the one hand, I'm not stating it for them to change, but on the other hand, I'm not going to not say it.
Of course. And my quick follow-up on that one was these these individuals that you work with, they are actually the 1 in a billion that do in fact not waste their lives. Is that correct?
That's a very good question. Honestly, I wouldn't go so far to say that. What I can say is, look, even if a man is a heathen, let him be sincere. Even if a man is a heathen, let him be honest, right? And so there's no judgment here that you wasted your life and therefore you should change and do this because shame on you and you should do. I'm not. What I'm saying is, if a person, since he is wasting his life, if he is going through a systematic sort of journey to try to not waste it or to learn the truth behind it or to, what more can be asked of a person? Right? So I'm not going to go so far as to make some dramatic statement that yes, they have now stopped wasting. My clients have now stopped wasting. No, I'm not going to say that. What I will say though is that if someone is sincere to go through that type of journey, and it doesn't mean that's the only way you can show sincerity. You have to talk to me. So I'm not the owner of sincerity, right? I mean, so you have your own birthrights just like anybody else. I'm not the owner of you or anybody else. So no one has to come talk to me or become my client. Sincerity is sincerity, and you can manifest it in whatever way you want. But those who come to me, at least they, in their own way, are demonstrating the sincerity to try to do something about it. And so that can be said that at least they're doing that for themselves. Not that it's a good or bad thing, but that has to be given credit because to never try to explore one's own downfall really isn't highly respectable either. To never try to learn the truth, especially about the things that matter to someone, that isn't really that doesn't deserve great regard either, right?
My question is the concept of time and an individual living tomorrow and being alive in the future, is this one of the main causes of people sort of wasting their lives and not being focused on truth? Thank you.
Do you think that you're wasting your life?
It does seem to be the case when I look at my past decisions and my life so far. I'm 22 years old, but it does seem to be the case, yes.
And why do you think that you're wasting it? What tells you that?
Well, you have spoken in the past about, if people had a close call with death, they would most likely have a greater connection with truth. And when I think about that, if I was going to die tomorrow, I know that my life would be different. My decisions would be different.
So then, what's your question?
So my question is this concept of me living tomorrow, me being alive in the future and time itself, is this the thing that's causing
But I think that the reason I asked what's your question, I think you already answered your own question, because on the one hand, you asked, is me being alive tomorrow and the concept of infinite time responsible for me wasting my life? And then on the other hand, you said that I know for a fact that if I had a near-death experience, that my life would be very different. So I think you asked the question and you gave the answer.
Good afternoon, Kapil, and thank you for your time in hosting this space. I have I've always been obsessed with enlightenment, ultimate freedom, otherworldly truths, and in my journey to discover them, I've gone through several yoga, meditation, kriyas, and so on. The past 10 or more than 10 years, and in those periods, I had many physiological changes and problems that some would term as kundalini disturbances.
And over the past 2 years, after having um, um, discovered your work, I recognized the futility of such prescriptions and stopped everything. But I am still obsessed with enlightenment, and I still go through these physical disturbances. And yesterday, I had some insight um, um, when I try to reach out. Like yesterday, I was listening to a podcast on enlightenment, and something within me is causing the disturbance again. And I had a miserable night last night. So this reaching out, could that cause such problems? Do you have any thoughts on these? Thank you.
I have no thoughts on your physical disturbances. No.
Okay. Is there some connection between actively seeking such things, or those things happen anyway based on a human's maturity and
I mean, I
things?
kind of like one of the previous callers. I think that you have discovered which is the best way to do it. Which is you have discovered for yourself that you have found, not you listen to me and believe me, but you in your own experience, after years of doing X, Y, and Z in the spiritual realm, have found that they were not fruitful, or to use your words, they were futile. And the fact is, like, they can only be futile. That isn't news to them, because things don't happen that way. So I don't have a preference issue against prescriptions and methods, practices, spirituality, self-help. That isn't like something that's not my preference. I'm only interested in truth. And I know that isn't true. That's why it isn't on my table. Those things do not take you to the place that you're talking about. That's why monks remain in the temple for decades. And they die in the temple, mid-chant. Not because they're bad monks. Not because they didn't do their meditation correctly. Not because they didn't listen to their superiors. Not because they didn't sweep the floor properly. That's all garbage. It's laughable. It's a joke. Those things, now, all that can come from that is that you enjoy being a monk and you enjoy doing the chanting. And that itself is fine. But that isn't any different than going for a jog or going shopping. I mean, it's another pleasurable activity. But those things don't take someone to that realm. If they did, then those monks wouldn't die in the monastery as monks, still trying to reach those places. So, like, and I'll scream this from the rooftops as I always have. No one should ever listen to me. No one should ever believe me. I am not trying to sell you on an idea or a concept. Because I have to care for that. I don't care. I'm not interested in helping you find truth. I don't care whether you do or not. But you asked me a question, and your question seemed sincere, so I gave you a response, and that is to say that those things, I didn't make the rules. But if I had made them, I would make them this way anyways. But I don't. Those things do not take one to those realms. Now, me having made that statement, should you listen to me? No, you shouldn't. But it's more relevant for you because you have years of experience behind you, which all culminated in you calling those pursuits futile. And they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think wisdom, and to use your word, maturity, that lies in knowing that that isn't how things happen. That is how things can happen on a mechanical level in the world, but that isn't how things happen on a. I'm not going to call it spiritual, but in this otherworldly domain where everyone is trying to get to in their own way and according to their own words, whether they want to call it freedom or joy or bliss or realization or enlightenment or whatever one's word is. Those things don't come from mechanical pursuits. And the more intellectual someone is, the more they're screwed. I mean, an intellectual or a scientist type person doesn't have a prayer. They should just leave. Now, does that mean that there is absolutely no possibility for that kind of person? No, there's always a possibility. But that possibility only arises if they are interested in not being a scientist anymore, not as a profession, but to recognize that that science abandons them at the door when they enter this realm. That requires maturity. That requires some degree of wisdom. But even that comes from one's own experiences. So that's why I always send people back to their own experiences. I never try to make anyone a student of mine. And it's now drop all those beliefs and then believe mine. No. What has been your experiences? And what has been your the things that you have gotten and not gotten from it? If those show to you that, I put in X, Y, and Z, I put in all these years, I did what the teachers said, I meditated and I did this and that, and I didn't get what I was looking for, then that is, I think, your greatest learning. Not anything that I said.
Your words definitely ring true. When I hear people mention that the kind of physiological disturbance is in fact the burning of karma that is taking me to where I want to go, that is something very hard for me to validate as true or not.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem with all these things. You can't verify them. So you can be told any kind of story, and it may be a nice story, and then society begins to parrot that story, and they put it on bumper stickers, and soon the story becomes a perceived reality. It must be stated that it doesn't mean that that's wrong. It doesn't mean that the story is wrong. It could be true, but that isn't the point. The point is not it could be true or it could not be true. The point is you don't know. And if you have no way to verify, then that can't be the way. Now, even that's a strong statement because I can't speak for you. I can say that can't be the way for me because I'm interested in truth. I'm interested in verifiability. I'm interested in evidence. And if it's just a story, that can't work for me. It doesn't mean that someone else should. That's fine. Everyone's on their own. But if I can't verify, if you tell me a story that's burning up karma and that's why you're having the physical, okay, like my response is okay. Like, what do you want me to say? If I can't verify it, it doesn't mean it's wrong. But it also doesn't, it might as well not even have been said. Because then the only possibility is go down the road of faith and belief. And I have zero interest in that. Now, listen to the key word, I. Doesn't mean that you should have zero interest or somebody else should have zero. I have zero interest in it. It's all about me. This is about me. You know how everyone says, what about me? It's about you. No, this is about me. It's not about you. I am not speaking for anybody else. I am saying that for me, that's a deal breaker because I can't verify it and I cannot go down the road of belief and faith because then that's a black box, which I have no idea where the finish line is. The starting, I just might as well just get a hot air balloon and go off into the sky. I mean, so I'm talking about me. I never want to try to impose on anybody else that they should think the way I think. That's why I say it's about me. I almost don't want you to listen to me because I hate trying to convince someone. I don't even like it when someone says, "Oh, well, you said this," and I really like. I don't even want you to say that I said this. What do you think?
Hello. My question is a follow-up from the two questions ago about different approaches to, let's say, pursuing freedom, where you spoke of that you're not interested in the faith approach, which I understand. My question is our only option to just follow the approach that we are most sincere about, because it's sincerity that will only work anyways?
I mean, whatever you're most sincere about is what you're going to do anyways.
Hello, Kapil. Many of your discourses are about connecting with what's true and what's genuine within oneself. Would you agree that knowing who you are on a deep level and connecting with your heart is much more important than thinking through things intellectually and trying to theorize things with questions and answers, but more so just connecting to what's true in your heart?
Yeah, it's a big assumption. I mean, it sounds nice on paper, but paper and reality are two very different things. And something feels true to you, then if whatever feels true and sincere to a given individual, then that's that's what makes sense to him. But to have it as an open question for me to respond to, I don't know what you mean by that, and you can't really. Like a lot of times, words are correct, but the like somebody could say, "Well, go inside," when they like to do mindfulness for 20 hours. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it could be some prescriptive pursuit, and they're going inside. I mean, technically, so these are just words, and the reality behind them. And there's nothing wrong. There's no judgment about them, whether they're wrong or right, or you should or shouldn't. But for me to say, yes, that's better, would be to assume that I know what you mean and where you are coming from a place that's deeper than just what the words say.
Kapil, why do I sometimes feel that I want to take on stress to do something more meaningful with my life, while at other times feel like I want to retire and disappear?
Once again, it's a trivial pursuit question, because I could say you feel that way because of X, Y, and Z. That isn't going to do anything. To gain the knowledge behind something doesn't really change the thing. It's just nice. It doesn't address the heart of the matter. Human beings go through various different convolutions and evolutions and think all types of things. And these things are never attacked from some trivial pursuit type question, no matter how well-meaning it is. It just doesn't come from there. And humans don't understand that. They think that if they get an answer to something, that they'll say, "Oh, wow, that's wonderful. That's great. That's going to change now." Nothing's going to change. These are all just cosmetic questions, though they're coming from a well-meaning place. I'm not demeaning them, but I'm talking about reality here. It's all about reality, truth, transformation, getting somewhere. It isn't about trivial pursuit, and I know that you're not trying to talk at as if it's trivial pursuit, but at the same time, I have to say what it is, because it's not going to go anywhere.
Your insight will help me find the truth, right?
No, it won't, because it's kind of like a field, and this is, I think this is a pretty universal thing. It's kind of like a field, and the field is, let's say, frozen over. In order for something to grow in that field, the land must be tilled. And it's only once it's tilled that it becomes fertile enough for any seed that's placed in there to sprout into any type of plant or flower or whatever it is. I mean, I'm not going to say no one, because I can never say no one. But the fact is that almost no one's fields are tilled. Now, they can be tilled, but it would be much more effective to pursue the tilling, not to pursue the planting. So for you to ask me that, a question, and then I give you some seeds, and then you throw them on your frozen ground, no, it won't help you find the truth, because it's coming in the form of information, and you are asking in the form of information. You a person has to, like, I'm not making a judgment as to what level you are or not. Like, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Like, but a person has to be at a certain level of reception, a certain level of capacity, and that isn't done through practice, and that isn't done through knowing information. That comes from somewhere, okay? And without that, nothing happens. That's why humans can practice all their life. Nothing ever changes. It's just moving their arms and whistling their lips. I mean, nothing ever. That's why humans don't transform, because you can't throw seeds on the frozen ground. And first of all, the ground is frozen, and second of all, the seeds they get aren't even seeds. They're just more ice, because they're just nonsensical prescriptions. Um, so maybe you can understand that. I don't know if you can or not, but that's kind of my best way to explain what um, my answer to your question.
So, Kapil, so what's the path towards finding the truth about a thing? For example, if I have a problem and I want to find the truth about that problem, I try and think about it, or I write about it, but that doesn't move anywhere because I'm just moving
Okay,
in
so
circles.
you're a logical person. Is that a fair statement? And if it's not, please be honest about it. There's no
Yeah.
judgment here. Okay, so if you're a logical person, then you apparently have discovered that if you think about it, it hasn't really found you the truth about what you're looking for. So then what can you do? Okay, well, if a person, it's because it's a very logical question. It's a very fair question. So if a person thinks about it, they have a problem and they think about, and then they can't find the solution to their problem. And I'm talking about like non-mechanical, non-technical, problems. Then they'll probably, find like a book or something, or they'll, you know, ask an expert or a psychologist or a priest or whatever it is. And then that psychologist or priest or expert will tell them, oh, your problem is this? Okay, then you should practice this. Like invariably, right? It'll be some type of you should do or practice or, some prescription. Okay. And invariably, everyone's tried those too, including you. So then, if those had worked, you wouldn't be in the situation that you're talking about, which is where everyone is. So if thinking about it didn't get you anywhere, and then you asked some expert and did a bunch of prescriptions, and that didn't get you anywhere. So the reason that happens is because you don't know the truth, and the expert doesn't know the truth. Okay. Now, does that mean that you're dumb and the expert is dumb? No, it doesn't. What that means is that the reason that you don't know the truth is because either you don't have the capacity for the truth or you've never been exposed to.
Because if you have been exposed to it but you don't have the capacity, then it can't enter. If you have the capacity but you've never been exposed to it, then there's no source for it, from where it can come to you. So the truth is found from a deep desire to, when a person slams his fist on the desk and has the overwhelming feeling that, look, I genuinely want the truth about this, whatever it may be, and that feeling is genuine, then there is perhaps a receptibility, and there's perhaps a capacity, there's perhaps a desire to go on a journey for exposure to truth. And then he must find a source which gives him the truth. So those, as you can see, this is like a perfect storm that must come together. Because if either one of those things is missing, then it's not going to happen. And so then you can also see why it is so incredibly unlikely for any human being to ever have the truth in their entire life. Because one, the chances of them having the exposure to it from some place or person or source is very small. And then the chances of them even having the desire to actually even know the word truth, I mean, just as it is, that's unlikely, because all of their exposures have been in the form of prescriptions and how-tos and hacks and 5-step plans. So you can see what tectonic shift must take place and how unlikely that tectonic shift is in a human being's life for those two things to even happen. So it happens almost by accident. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that makes sense, then, I mean, this is, my work is for mature people, right? For like really serious people. It isn't for the drivel and the masses. I mean, it isn't. It just isn't, because this is like 475 million layers deep. No one stands a chance. So you have to have some level of depth to even get to the front door. Because the truths, like if someone goes on the journey to find the truth, the things they will be exposed to and the things that they will hear will be so wildly and unimaginably contrary and heretical and antithetical and opposite and off this planet, different in every possible way from what they have been exposed to. They have to be ready for that. They have to be ready for that. So that's my sort of somewhat comprehensive response to your question as to, if I want the truth about something and I thought about it and it didn't come to me, then what do I have to do? That's an honest answer to your question.
Thank you.
Hey, Kapil. Namaste, and I appreciate the previous answer you gave. What does going on a journey mean? That's the part I don't understand.
No, that's fair. Like, for instance, if someone goes on this is just an example. If someone goes on a journey with me, right, and let's say they're a client, then there's a journey which takes place in terms of a repeated exposure to truths based upon the problems and issues and concerns and matters that are most important to them. And through that journey, there was a consistent exposure to truth. There isn't an attempt to try to proselytize or make them conform or make them have certain beliefs or abandon X, Y, and Z or do various practices. And it's a journey towards direct truth. Now, the reason that I use my words very carefully, I said that's just an example. You go on your own journey. I mean, no one needs me. I'm not have a monopoly on anything. Like you do, you're a free human being. You can do whatever you want. So one can go on their own journey to discover the truth. Is it easy? No, but like nothing worthwhile is. But the problem is that there's many roadblocks, and the biggest roadblock is one's own conditioning. And, unless there's some form of guidance, it tends to be very unlikely. But by no means is anything impossible. So that's just one example of what I mean. Under no circumstances do I mean that anybody needs to come to me. No one needs to read my work or read my books or come. I reject that. Like, you're a free human being. You're free to do whatever you want. You can create whatever you want in your life through your own desire and sincerity. No one needs anybody else. So I do this because I love to do it. That's it's nothing more complex than that. But that's an example of what I mean.
Thanks, Kapil.
Business, and obviously there's a lot of like gurus and information and like stuff online to learn from and evolve. And I'm curious, like, is that just going to slow me down and just be prescription versus looking at the business myself through first principles? Is learning from like better founders who have solved all the problems I'm going through speed up the process for me? Or
I don't understand your question.
so I'm running a business. Obviously, I want to become a better entrepreneur, grow a better business, and improve. And he's learning from superior founders to me, listening to podcasts, reading their books, asking them for mentorship.
So I'm sure that you've already done those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And how has that been highly productive for you? Honest question.
In some areas, yes, but I feel like as I dive more deeper into the nuance and go further into it, a lot of the rules become almost like limitations and not as productive. So some cases like a tip on hiring, for example, or running meetings with employees helps me, and I feel like it does get a good result. But I'm not like an A+, 10 out of 10 player.
Right.
And other times
so
it's been bullshit.
The more superficial question that you ask, the more experts there will be to answer your question, and the more deeper and nuanced and specific and depth related your desire is, the more those will all fade away, and then no one will be left. So
100%.
And so, given that that's been your experience, which is typical, you could I'm going to say this, and you shouldn't listen. And the reason that you shouldn't, listen, is because I don't want to preempt the experience for you. So I'm going to say to you, you can listen to every podcast in the world. It's not going to do jack. Okay, I'm not going to say it won't help you on some. Once again, I always come back to this underlying thread in my work, which is on a mechanical and technical level. There are things that you absolutely can gain from people, from experts, from books, from podcasts. Like you said, give me a tip on this or a tip on that, and it's relatively surface level. And so the more in the mechanical and technical realm it is, the more within the purview of experts it will be. The problem is that most problems and sufferings and most of the things that makes them a world class are not on the mechanical and technical level. They're much deeper. As a result, from that standpoint, podcasts are a waste of time. Experts are a waste of time. Books are a waste of time. And the reason I say you shouldn't listen is examine for yourself. Maybe I'm full of it. Maybe you'll find that, no, I was wrong, that those were wonderful for you. That's why I began with asking your experience. So nobody should listen to me. They should do their own thing and then find their own conclusions. They might find that, no, this helped me wonderfully. Great. Then you'd be a fool to abandon what helped you. So, but I don't have any use for those things, because I find that all of those things are surface level. Because, once again, am I talking to a logical person? Am I talking to a reasonable person? If I am, he will acknowledge the fact, and he will agree that what do podcasters want? They want audiences. Who are audiences composed of? The masses. They don't want one person in their audience. So the masses, do the masses become anything? No. The masses fail. Do the masses become great? No. Are the masses unusual? No. Are the masses unique? No. Are the masses anyone to be followed? No. Hell no. So if podcasters want and experts and those who want big audiences, which obviously people do, understandably so, then what other source do they have to gain those numbers than from the masses? There is no other source. As a result, if once they get X% of the masses and they have their thousands of followers, whatever it is, in order to, first of all, entice them, and secondly, in order to keep them, they have to give them drivel. They have to give them things that are on the level of the masses. Otherwise, the masses will say, "What the hell is this crap?" and they'll leave. And they don't want them to leave because how are they gonna make money? So it's all a shell game. It is the masses produce experts to teach the masses. The masses are in control of everything. As a result, everything it shouldn't be any type of frustration that all of the information in the world is drivel. It has to be drivel. Because if it wasn't drivel, there'd be no audiences. And if there's no audiences, then nobody could make a living on anything. The podcasters need to give junk because junk is what their audience wants. If the podcasters said, "I'm only going to speak the truth," first of all, they would have to have the DNA and the bandwidth in themselves to seek the truth, number one. Number two, they would only want to put out information that is the truth and risk not having anybody of an audience, but a very small number. And that's a deal breaker for most, which understandably, on a practical level, it isn't a reasonable business structure. So you can see how the entire game is rigged. It has to be that way. So that's why if you go into the world and you look in the podcast and the mastermind meetings and the X, Y's, and Z's and everything. There's no like good stuff and bad stuff. Yeah, there's better advice, that's technical advice, and there's worse technical advice, sure. Better mechanical advice and worse mechanical advice, sure. But anything beyond the mechanical and technical, like I have people send me emails and they say, "I stopped listening to all podcasts, reading all books because I see it all. I see through it all now." Right? I don't. That's not a good thing. I don't really care. I didn't try to convince them of that. They found that on their own. So, if you want truth, you don't really have a source out there because there's no money in truth. There's no audience for truth. No one has the capacity for truth. No one wants the truth. Everyone is conditioned to seek nonsense. Everyone is conditioned to, tell a joke every 7.5 minutes and then make it entertaining for the audience. It's all drivel. The world is all, if you look outside your window, look on your balcony, and you look outside, it's all junk. There's nobody there. There's no audience. There's no real audience. There's no real people. There's no real podcaster. There's no real expert. They're all junk trash talkers. It's all they are. So it is all making a business upon trash. Do I blame them? No. What's wrong with making a business? You make a business on whatever you want. Like that's fine. No harm, no foul. But in all honesty, there isn't a market for truth. It isn't even wise. If you want to make a business, you don't make a business on truth. That's stupidity. It's not wise. So that's the reason why. It isn't because of some conspiracy. That's the reason why you shouldn't find any truth out there because nobody wants to starve. So if you really want the truth, you have to understand where it isn't, because then you save years of your life. Does that make sense?
It's an honor, Kapil, to ask you a question. My question is, if I'm in the journey to seek the truth, but I hit a roadblock, a wall, and I can't quite figure out how to get around the wall. I'm stuck behind that wall. How can I get past this wall?
There's no way that I can tell you how to get past a wall. I don't. One has to sift through what I said and discover things from there if they wish. that might be a benefit to them.
Hey, Kapil. So, you just said basically to not follow
No,
podcasters.
I didn't. No, I didn't. You didn't hear a thing I said.
Well,
I did not say that you should not follow. No, no. You might call this semantics. You
yeah,
might think this is like word. I'm being picky. No, absolutely. I went out of my way to say
yeah,
that you should do it for yourself if you want to. Don't
yeah.
listen to me. So don't. I know you're not doing it on purpose, but don't say. Be very careful with your words, like I am.
Okay,
Don't say
I
that I
understand.
said that you should not follow podcasters. No, I did
Yeah,
not.
yeah. The reason I'm asking this is because there are some truth seekers. Well, in the tech space that I follow, and I really find like what they talk about, it's truthful, and it's very helpful, but at the same time, since you're saying it's all a business, I was just wondering, um, do some things could actually can help you and
Well, I mean,
help improve your life.
I've already answered that question. I said that if something helps you, then it would
Yeah.
be foolish not to. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that if something helps you? It's all up to you. If
Yeah.
something helps you, don't listen to me. I mean, don't listen to
Okay.
me. I mean, if something helps you, it helps you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Kapil, one of the things I find fascinating about diving into your work is that many of the questions that I have are more of your questions are answered in your silence because I just answer them myself. It's almost like you're the exposure and then just a mirror for people to answer more of the questions. And the question I have is this void that many, myself included at different points in my life, feel of, the chasing to constantly get somewhere and achieve X, Y, and Z and become X, Y, and Z. Is all that based on a not knowing of who we really are and like the transformation of like finding this permanence, whether it's becoming aware of the fact that you're a son of God or whatever it is that is the final destination? Is that where the void originates from?
What void are you talking about?
It's the endless pursuits of humanity and constantly trying to become this and arrive there, and
Well,
the
the human
restlessness
being's
of human nature.
fundamental problem is that he doesn't know the truth. That's his fundamental problem. It isn't because he's doing this wrong and that wrong and he needs to change this and change that. I mean, besides obviously destructive behaviors that hurt people and hurt himself, obviously. I mean, there's base level stuff that is not, that needs to be changed. Um, but the human suffers because he doesn't know the truth. He doesn't realize, as simple as that statement might be, it is anything but simple. He suffers because he doesn't know the truth. And because he doesn't know that, then what he does is he thinks that because of the experts and the teachings and all those stuff, he thinks he is suffering because he's doing it wrong and he needs to do it right. And he hasn't practiced enough. And he doesn't have the 5 steps. And he doesn't have the right prescriptions. That's what he thinks. That's what his brainwashing and conditioning has got him. And because that's what he has been raised to believe, not just by his parents, but the whole world, everyone. Then that's where his entire life remains focused on. That's where he lives for his entire life. He doesn't. The word truth, like it's like this meaningless word that even sounds spiritual. So, like even the word, it isn't really something that is a part of human life. not even a part of their vocabulary. I mean, they've heard the word. But there's truth, like nothing else exists but the truth. And it has nothing to do with spirituality. But these are very, very foreign type of explanations. I mean, these are very foreign. This is a very foreign idea to human beings who live in the world of how-to and fixing their problems by practicing X, Y, and Z. So because he doesn't recognize that all of his problems result from him not knowing the truth, I don't care how many things he changes. He might improve a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But a human being is born, he suffers for his entire life, endless suffering. Some suffer more than others. Some have harder lives than others. And then, when he's old, he dies. Because we all have an age limit, and we die. So that's human existence, and it isn't existence at all. And all of that results from not knowing. Forget like not knowing the truth. Not knowing that his problem isn't that he doesn't know the 5 steps. His problem is he doesn't know the truth.
Kapil, how do you overcome the fear of truth? I think somewhere I stop myself because I'm just afraid of what I'll find. So I'm rather distract myself.
So what experience did you have that even gave you an inkling that you might be afraid of what you find?
I think as I was pursuing my truth, I started to feel more alive and stronger, and that just made me more afraid of failing. And then I just simply distracted myself with simple stimulations or pleasures. So I feel like I've done this cycle many times.
And then so I don't know what you mean by, and not that I'm saying you did it wrong or you need to do it right, but I don't know what, like, once again, these are just words coming from you. I don't know what you mean by, when you tried to find the truth. I don't know what that means.
I think for me, it's what's living fully, what am I here for? Just trying to be more self-actualized.
And honestly, all of those words are worldly words, right?
Yep.
And that's what I mean. Like someone says, well, I looked in that bucket and it was all a bunch of I'm afraid of that, or it's junk. Okay. But maybe the bucket was labeled X, but it didn't really contain X. And I can and I can say for an absolute fact. I mean, I think it's safe to say nobody, even though I know it probably isn't true because there probably is one guy or 3. But the likelihood of meeting them are basically almost zero, not zero, almost zero. That actually has gone on a journey of truth. No one knows what that means. If you mention the word truth to someone, they think spirituality. They think meditation. They think mindfulness. They think yoga. They think all those things. None of those has anything to do with the truth. Nothing. Zero. It doesn't mean they're bad. Doesn't mean they're wrong. Doesn't mean that you can't get some benefit from them. It has nothing to do with that. That isn't the question here. The question is the pursuit of truth. And I don't think there's a human being alive who isn't conditioned. And as a result, because he's conditioned, he's going to seek, like even when I say the word truth, he's going to, I know what that means. That's spiritual. That's the East. That's meditation. Oh, that's already been talked about. Yeah, that was in the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Yeah, I read that. Yeah, that was like, that's all they know. So when someone says to me that I went on the path to truth and I'm afraid of what, no, you didn't. I mean, that may sound presumptuous, and that's fine. But I'm willing to be wrong every time, because I know that there's the one chance that I'll be right. The one chance that I'll be wrong. Fine, I'll take one failure out of 40 million. Fine, I'll risk that. Okay. No, you didn't.
Sure.
Because I know when someone says I want to search, I know what they did. They went and all that stuff, and you proved it. Self-actualization and X, Y, and Z, and so, like, don't even say anything, right? These are all junk words, and I know that you have to use some words, otherwise you won't be able to speak.
Right.
But that isn't truth, because truth isn't being taught anywhere. Truth, forget taught. Truth isn't even being discussed anywhere. Not in any temple, not in any monastery, nothing. It is not because it's some sacred thing that shouldn't be. No, it's entirely practical. But humans, because of their wiring and their conditioning, are interested and have been taught to be interested in pursuing spirituality, which has nothing whatsoever to do with truth.
How does one recognize which desires are sincere and which are mere conditioning?
Why do you care?
I have a lot of interests and I'm trying to figure out. I feel like I'm getting pulled in a lot of directions.
So what?
Is that fine? I think it's fine sometimes. Sometimes I don't think it's fine.
There's no fine. There's no fine or not fine. There's no.
Can you elaborate?
There's no okay or not okay. There's no right and there's no wrong. There's no, like, you're asking. This is, once again, you're a product of the media. I'm not blaming you. I'm not putting you down. I'm just using you as an example for all human beings. You're asking an is that okay type of question, because you have experts like, oh, that's fine. That's normal. That's good. No. Nothing is normal and not normal and good and bad and okay. Like, nothing is anything. It's whatever it is that you want. If, like the other person said, he said, I feel this way, and I don't know if I feel this way again. So he didn't ask, is that fine or not? Even if I said it was fine, he didn't want it. So there's no, like, okay. And there's no, some expert says it's okay, then you take a sigh of relief. Oh, thank God, that's okay. That's all garbage. There's no okay and not okay. It is, what does a human being truly want in the heart of hearts if he only had one choice and one chance? What is it in his heart of hearts that he really wants? This okay and not okay, and what should I do, and do you sanction it, and what do the experts say? And it's all just fog. That doesn't go anywhere. That isn't truth.
I read I read a I read a lot, read hundreds of books, philosophy books, the Bible. And of course I'm trying to seek the truth, but sometimes I don't even know what that is. I feel sometimes that I'm running in circles. Um, is it possible that I'll never know the truth? Or can I, is it something I have to keep on working at it to get to the truth? Because I feel like I'm going in circles.
Well, you're going to go in circles because you don't know what you want.
That's true.
Hi, Kapil. Thank you so much for all this podcast, like the talk. I'm very blessed to talk to you. My question is that, like, I'll be in suffering and I dissect it. I dig deep, look into it. What is the problem? What I am doing with my life every moment, especially when I'm in suffering, not in pleasure though. I'm tired of this oscillation between suffering, getting to some kind of understanding. But when I go out in society again, I associate with people, and some or the other way, I am back into it, or somewhere it soaks in that, okay, that might be something I need to understand. I am back again. So back and forth, I'm oscillating between the suffering and the understanding, how much ever I can understand. But my question is, like, I'm tired of it. What makes one cease to not move away from the truth? Why do I oscillate?
I mean, fundamentally, what you're asking is that what is it that makes one obsessed about the truth, and to the point where they don't really they view everything through that lens, and whatever they do, they want it through the avenue of truth. And I can't answer that question. I don't know why people have the desires that they do. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I think people are maybe chosen by something as opposed to them choosing it. I don't really have a more elegant answer than that. I can't explain why. I don't think really that are many human beings who actually are or have an obsession for truth to begin with. But whether they, why even the few that do, I don't know.
So I have a similar question as to what someone just asked. After uncovering certain truths about the mind, why is it that I continue to fall for the tricks of the mind? Like, is there, like, what remains to be seen?
Because you don't know the truth about the mind.
Then an hour later, whatever it is, obviously it's going to balance out and be sad. And I want to ask, is that like a rule or a law where I guess your happiness levels are always going to be equilibrium? If you're too happy, you're going to feel shit, and chasing it's never, there's no such thing as being like slightly more happy on average. I'm not sure if my question makes sense.
Well, I think the foundation of your question is not based upon truth. Not that you're lying, but the foundation upon which your premise is based is not based upon truth, because you believe happiness to be a thing.
Maybe pleasure is the right word then. Like, stimulating, I guess, like happy things in the brain.
Yeah,
and
because
feeling
that's because pleasure and displeasure and pleasure and sorrow are all the same thing. You think they're different.
Hello. Hi, Kapil. Hope you can hear me. Kapil, yeah, I had some personal tragedy last year, and along with that came bad health issues and emotional chaos and a lot of other problems and therapy and all that. And during those last 6 months, the biggest problem I had was that why I'm not able to talk to people about it. The moment I talk to anyone, somebody's giving advice or therapist is coming with their standard cosmetic questions, I just could not open up. And eventually I realized is the root of my problem is that I expect people to listen to me. I expect people to ask me the questions which I want to be asked. But I'm still not there. But I feel somehow this.
Well, I think that your problem is a universal problem. I don't think any human being has anybody to talk to. Now that doesn't mean that on some surface level, or even on a somewhat deeper level, someone's having a problem with something and they have a best friend that they talk to and they help them through. I mean, those things do exist. I mean, it doesn't mean that someone can't get something from a therapist. But in general, like, the deeper your questions are, the more that there is no one to talk to, because you won't find anyone who's not going to prescriptionize you. So that what you're expressing is a universal problem. I think that's one of the fundamental problems that human beings have, that across the world, is that there really isn't anyone to talk to, because they're all going to throw stuff on you, and it's all
Correct.
it's all going to be it's all going to be out of a desire to help. It's not coming from a bad
Correct.
place. It's coming from a good place. But the
Mhm.
fact remains, the human organism is not a thing that needs to be told that they need to do X, Y, and Z. A human organism is starving for truth, whether that human organism realizes it or not. Now, the experts certainly don't realize it. That's why
Mhm.
they do what they do. That's why they prescriptionize all over the place, because they have a complete lack of understanding of how human beings work and how the human mind works and what humans fundamentally are and are not. So what you're describing is actually a fundamental, universal human problem, that there really isn't anyone to talk to because no one's going to give you the truth. Not because they don't want to, but because that's not where they
Mhm.
live.
And with the capacity for mastery, do they lose it through conditioning, or is true greatness inseparable from the seriousness needed to actually achieve it?
You're asking questions at arm's length. You're using a bunch of words that are worldly concepts, and then you're throwing them on me. These words that you're using, they don't really have any acute they don't really have any acute desperation to them. They're just like it's like a science podcast. That it seems as if it's like a science podcast to you.
Myself, what do I want? I'm always thinking about that. I question that, but I can never arrive at an answer that lasts. Is it really possible to know what you want?
Yes.
Hello, Kapil. My question is all truth accessible to me right now? Just in general, all truth? Thank you.
I don't know, because that all depends upon your level of receptivity. That depends upon um, one's capacity to jettison their beliefs and opinions. That depends upon um, the depth of one's desire to know the truth. That depends upon all sorts of readiness within the human being, which cannot be gauged just by you asking that question.
Hi, Kapil. Do you think it's necessary for someone to experience the truth for themselves, or is just hearing or reading about it often enough for someone to be able to imbibe it?
Why do you ask?
Because I feel like I've read about a lot of things that seem like the truth, but I don't know if I've necessarily been able to imbibe all of it. So, is it important for me to just live more and experience more things so that
Well, I mean,
I
it would
discover truth
depend.
for
It
myself?
would depend what you mean by living more and experiencing more things. Because if you live more and you experience more things, but what you experience is untruth, then how would that bring you closer to the truth? On the other hand, if you experience more things, and the more things that you experience are truth, then one could see how that might bring you closer to the truth. So it just by experiencing more, I mean, if you examine every person, who's 90 years old and 100 years old who reaches the end of their life, do they reach truth? No. And yet they've experienced a lot more than you or me. So experiencing life, while it certainly can teach lessons, and life experiences can be valuable, but as far as reaching the truth or learning the truth, I don't think I don't think years of living or how long you live has really much to do with truth, because one's life really isn't almost never tends to be about even wanting to learn truth. So just by experiencing life, how can that bring truth?
Can you share your insight on love when love becomes a very deep pain? How does one carries this through life?
I think humans use a lot of words, and those words are defined according to the very same language in which they learned them. These words have very little meaning in the land of truth, because the context in which one learns them, they tend to be just sort of just words. What does that word even mean? And then when pain arises from it, in actuality, the pain is much more understandable than so-called love. So all of these words, all of these, the context in which they're used, the things in which they're attached to, the things which they're used to refer to, one uses a bunch of words which have no foundation, or at least the person hasn't really examined the foundation. He just picked it up off a tree. And then he begins to ask questions about a word and a concept which he never really examined. And then when there's consequences to that, then he begins to ask questions about it when it should have been examined in the first place. So if you come in at the fourth and fifth stage, if you come in at the fourth and fifth level and begin asking about a fundament of a thing, then it really doesn't address the issue, because you're asking about band-aids placed upon band-aids. And you're asking about the fifth band-aid placed upon the other four. They have no relevance. It does have relevance that one is feeling pain. That's understandable and acute and relatable by all human beings. But the word love is much more theoretical. Pain, I think, is real. Love is conceptual.
Doing it for short periods of time, and it's been prescribed many times as a way of being in the moment or trying to find the moment. And I found it to work sometimes, but it's not reliable. Why is it that it's been prescribed so many times as a way of?
I mean, why wouldn't it be? Why has everything been prescribed so many times? I mean, why would you ask a question as if you believe that the world is going to give you that? First of all, the prescriptions even work, and number two, that the world is going to give you anything that's effectual. Why would, like, you're acting as if the boogeyman tried to scare you and you're outraged that the boogeyman tried to scare you. What else is he supposed to do? What do you expect from the world? Why would you think? I mean, you're asking a question, why would the world give me things that don't work? Like, as opposed to what? That's why it's the world. I don't understand why you would wonder why the world would give you ineffectual things, why the world would prescribe. What else is it going to do? Give you truth?
Kapil, what would be the signs that I am getting closer to the truth or maybe have found the truth?
Why does that matter?
Because of the quest for truth or the understanding uh, of, yeah, I don't know.
So what is a sign that you are desperately seeking the truth?
Maybe problems or pain in life.
That isn't an answer. Everyone's having problems and pain in life, so they're all seeking the truth.
To the previous question, I wanted to ask, how do I find the truth about meditation? Because if I would to rely on belief, I would assume that it doesn't work, and the other path would be to try it and keep doing it for some period of time and see whether it works for myself. But
You can refer to my book if you wish. There is no how. That might be of help to you. It might not, but that kind of thing is discussed pretty much at length in there.
thank you.
My life is constant pain, constant suffering, constant struggle. I am sometimes aware of my mind and I can try to observe it, but kind of as you've alluded to, what I do doesn't work, right? Because I get angry again, or my emotions are triggered again, and once again I'm back in the game. It's it seems like part of the answer is conditioning, and I'm wondering if there's something more beyond like the basic training, like the training of a dog, or if the quote unquote evil is really just in the conditioning itself.
Well, whether it is or not, the fact is that human beings are conditioned. So, okay, so then what's one going to do with that? Well, that's personal. One person may throw up their hands and say, "Oh well, I'm conditioned. It is what it is." Somebody else says, "Whether I'm conditioned or not, I don't really care. I'm going to find a way out of this." Well, that's fine too. See, human beings are. You have to understand the human creature, including yourself. Human beings are fundamentally unserious. They're just cardboard cutouts. That's all they are. That isn't the potential they have. They have potential for great things. But as they live and as they've been conditioned and as they continue to live as they are, they're just cardboard cutouts. They're not serious. They in these forums and not and all over the world. I'm hurting. This is bothering me. I wish this wasn't happening. I have conflict over here. I have unhappiness here. I'm in sorrow over here. I'm in pain, and all of those things are real. All of those things, deeply affect human beings. But human beings are unserious. They're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to complain. They're not going to. They'll happily do nonsensical prescriptions. They'll happily do those because they're garbage, and humans love garbage because they don't want to get anywhere. So the same human who says that he's in sorrow, which he is, which is understandable and respectable, and it perfectly is it's a real pain that he's experiencing. He's not making it up, and it's actually the very fact that he isn't making up his pain, the very fact that he isn't like aggrandizing it and exaggerating it, like, is also it also makes it so ironic that he listens to the world who treats him like he doesn't have any pain. See, the world, if you you go to the world and it's prescription givers, they may not use this tone, but it's still the same message. Oh, you got some pain? Okay, don't worry, but just go over here, do some meditation, it'll be fine. Just go over here, go to see a therapist, and then he'll give you some stuff, and you'll be fine. Oh, just next time, if you don't want any more like pain and conflict, just next time when you talk to that person, just say it in a nicer way, or say it like this, and then you'll be fine. See, those are not only prescriptive; those are insults. Those are insults. They might as well call you a four-letter word, because those are belittling your pain. Those are making fun of you. Those aren't taking you seriously. They're just marginalized. They're saying you're full of crap with your little pains that you make up. So I'll just give you a little band-aid over here because I don't take you seriously, because you aren't worth it. and take this Band-Aid and go in the corner and shut up and put it on, and it'll do X and Y for you. Of course, it does nothing, but they don't care. The world belittles your pain. The world insults all human beings by their prescriptions. That is not taking it seriously. But the human's fine because the human's in the same boat. It's a blind leading the blind. The human himself isn't going to do anything about it. So that's why there's such a big market for prescriptions. There's a big market for cosmetics when all of those in the audience are looking for lipstick. So no one is serious, while the pain is serious. That's respectable. The sorrow is serious. That's respectable. The heartache and the heartbreak is serious. That's respectable. Respectable. Life is difficult. Pains occur, and many of them are heart wrenching. And because they are heart wrenching, because they are severe, because they bother human beings on their deepest core foundation for all of their lives, it deserves respect. It deserves serious solutions, not nonsense. But the human isn't serious. The same human who talks about his pains is the same human who wants some 5-second thing on Twitter, and he doesn't want to get over his pain. He just wants some ointment. And that's fine, it's up to him. But nobody who really talks about their pain has any seriousness about wanting the truth to cure it. And that'll never change because humans will always be humans.
Hello, Kapil. Am I on? Oh, yes, I'm on. So I actually wrote this down just so I don't waste your time. My personal belief is that God is the silence of existence, and that's how God is omnipresent. Life is just a series of choices and experiences. When we aren't making a choice, someone's making a choice for us. But at the end of the day, we still have an experience. So, with that understanding, if there's any currency between us and the silence of existence, is the experience we provide the silence. I believe that
Do you have a question?
yes, I do. I want your opinion on this. Does like God handles death? What we have to
Well,
focus
there's
on.
no reason. There's no reason for asking my opinion on something if you already have an invested opinion in something. What do you care? Like, what does it matter if I say yes or no? I agree, disagree. It has no meaning. You've already come with your answer and your own solution. So asking me has no relevance.
Is it fair to say that if I want to maximize my potential as a human being, I have to find my truth?
I mean, the truth is the only thing that exists. So if what one is pursuing in the non-material realms is prescriptions and methods and techniques and things that are worldly, then he isn't pursuing truth. And not that that's wrong or right, it's up to him. But if truth is the only thing in existence, then unless one is doggedly, devotionally, in a heartfelt manner pursuing that, not because he should, but just for whatever reason he deeply desires it, then I don't quite understand, what how he could in any way move closer towards his ultimate possibility.
Hey, Kapil. Um, my question is around, well, let me just start with it. So for quite some time, I've been trying to get into, like a meditative state. And I spent a lot of time reading this and watching that. And eventually I stopped all of that. And I think it lines up with what you talked about in regards to prescriptions. But anyways, long story short, a lot of frustration, after a lot of frustration, I've realized something somewhat ridiculous. And what that is once there's this effortlessness, there's something that arises. And it led me to realize that maybe meditation isn't a thing to do, but it's something that occurs. It's something that happens. But what I get stuck in is then I end up being back in thinking patterns, and I'm sort of stuck on the whole. I hate to use the word concept, but the idea, I guess, of watching thoughts. I understand it intellectually, but I don't really understand it. And so my question is, like, is this just a mind trick? And maybe it's my desire to see thoughts that's exactly what's keeping me from it, or is there something else that I don't understand yet?
Well, I don't think that you understand fully. I mean, you've just gotten a very minute taste of the ineffectuality of prescriptions, but then you've categorized them as some as um, not so good and others having some potential. So your lack of understanding comes from perhaps the lack of experience of having tested all the prescriptions in order to see through them all. You still think that some of them are actually going to benefit you in the non mechanical realms.
Okay.
Hello, Kapil. You have mentioned before in the past about Buddha reaching a state of sort of enlightenment in a sort of singular moment of uncompromising sort of devotion to truth. My question uh, is truth understood in a sort of singular, uncompromising, devotional sort of experience, or is it something that is understood over many truths, over time, over many understandings? Thank you.
No, I don't think it's conditional in that regard. I mean, for I think human beings have had realizations, for instance, that after having gone through an experience, they had a deep realization about it, and it that part of them changed, and they never went back because it was realized and it was done. So I don't think it's some spiritual thing. I think it's very practical. But whatever does or does not lead to it, I don't think it's this devotional moment of bliss and romanticized. No, I think it's very practical. But what is required to realize truths is a devotion. There's no sitting under a tree and going to the forest. I mean, you can if you want, but there is a seriousness that is required. I don't think things have to be. I don't even like the story of the Buddha because too much of it is romanticized. Walking on lotus petals, blossoming underneath his feet. It's all just romanticized. A lot of it's just hyperbole, and that makes it a story. So it one has to keep their feet on the ground. If something isn't practical, it's nonsense. That's why spirituality has no meaning. It isn't. It's on the one hand, something can be practical in terms of it can be practiced. That doesn't make it effective. On the other hand, it can be spiritual and pie in the sky. That doesn't make it effective. So it's it isn't about the romanticizing of things. It's, do you want it or not?
Thank you for your work. I can't thank you enough for the writings that you have put out there. My question is, can the five senses be trusted? Or in other words, are all the truths recognized by sensory inputs alone, given there is no conditioning or the filter with which you see things?
Why are you asking?
I'm, I mean, I've heard you mention, things like communion with truth and being able to access truths from an unnameable place and things like that, and it fascinates me. At the same time, I couldn't understand that, um, you know from
See,
the
the
instrument that we
the
have.
problem is not the brain that you have. The problem is the desire that you have. And that desire that human beings have is misplaced because it's placed in the direction of the world and worldly knowledge. Now that worldly knowledge which you require for your work and material things is fine. But I'm talking about with regard to otherworldly things in one's life that are not mechanical or technical. Even in those things, the human being does not have a desire for those things. So, because he lacks the desire, he begins to ask about fancy things like going beyond the senses and achieving the truth in some fanciful moment underneath, a tree, a banyan tree or something. He goes to those fancy places because he lacks just the basic second grade desire for the truth. So if he had that desire, it doesn't matter if what brain he has. He would orient it in the direction of wanting to seek the truth, as opposed to having it oriented towards wanting more prescriptions. So it's nothing. The more spiritual you make it, the further and further you move away from truth. The more all these things are like all these things become complicated and spiritual and like fanciful and romantic. Those things have nothing to do with the truth. The truth is feet on the ground, practical. But the human plays a very clever game. He doesn't really want it. So then, because he doesn't really want it, then he begins to bring up the five senses and all these things that he learned in the spiritual world. And almost to convince himself that, see, I can't go beyond the five senses, so I can't get the truth. He just plays these games. When you're hungry, do you want food? Yes. When you're thirsty, do you want water? Yes. It's nothing more basic than that. But when it comes to a desire, do you want truth? No, you don't.
Hi, Kapil. My question is it possible to escape the constant condition of human suffering when one is still not necessarily financially free and still has to worry about putting food on the table? Thank you.
But see, you've proven my point again. I mean, you're making truth like this spiritual quest that's independent from daily living and that's independent from earning money and independent from your daily existence. And you've learned that from the spiritualists because they've bastardized truth. They've bastardized everything. Truth has nothing to do with leaving your home and living in a cave and giving up your worldly. It does nothing to do with that. Truth invests everything. It's the only thing there is. So it invests every arena of the human being's life. So this line of demarcation that you've conceptualized and been brainwashed into, that I have my so-called real world over here, and then the truth is something else. It's just that isn't true.
Good evening, Kapil. So, in the past few months, I've been examining a part of my game that's fear, basically, and I've started noticing that fear seems to present itself in situation in which I feel like I'm playing a different game than the usual trading game, and I've noticed that quote unquote an understanding that can help me reduce fear is that I love the game for the fact that I can lose. And so, is this a truth, or am I going like astray?
Well, the game that you're playing is the game of looking for tidbits to fill in your gaps of knowledge, hoping that you'll piece together small fragments into a big whole. And those things don't happen. So the game that you're playing is the game of not being systematic in your approach towards truth. No, not that you should or you should not. I'm just telling you the game that you're playing. The game that you're playing is standing on the outside looking in, and asking tidbits of questions that will that you hope will turn into some holistic understanding. Things don't work that way. If somebody is really genuinely interested in moving past the games, if someone is genuinely interested in moving past fear and anxiety and all of these things, which really are otherworldly pursuits only for the very, very rare, then that seriousness is expressed through a deep desire for a systematic pursuit of truth, a systematic pursuit of that which leads to an end of all of these impurities and problems in one's life. It isn't done by window shopping on the outside, asking bits and pieces whenever something comes up, because those bits and pieces never turn into a cohesive whole.
Hello, Kapil. Thank you for you helped me quit smoking and drinking through reading and understanding, and it helped me understand that prescriptions lead one astray. But my question is, what is the foundation of a healthy relationship? Because I recently had went through a breakup and it tore me apart, and so I'm trying to understand what the foundation
The
of
foundation of a healthy relationship is the foundation of everything. And guess what it is?
myself.
Truth.
Thank you.
Go to a person who has seen the truth and is in a place to show another person the truth, what would that person look for?
I mean, why do you ask?
Maybe because I have this belief, I don't know whether it's true or not, that it's possible for a person. The only way to get to the truth is for somebody who's already attained it to show it to you, and there is no other way to get to it.
I don't like. Okay, so like, I don't know about the only way. There's. I don't think anything really has an only way necessarily. But can someone be shown the truth? Absolutely, 100%, no doubt. But I mean, where are you going to go, right? And that's the issue. Like, where are you going to go? Because if someone that's the problem, really, because wherever someone goes, they're not going to get the truth. I mean, I can't say it any more plainly than that. While at the same time, I'm saying that wherever they go, it isn't that the person's going to try to lie to them or deceive them. And while that may happen, but many times, no, there's a genuine desire to help. And, but humans just aren't walking around looking for the truth, including the human that you go and visit. So like that just isn't the wiring. It's like you're looking for an alien on Earth. The humans just aren't that way. I mean, it's like you're looking for a human who functions off of carbon dioxide instead of oxygen. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. It on a practical level. I'm not going to say it's zero, but it's not much. So that's my question. Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go where you're not going to get meditation? Where are you going to go where you're not going to get some leaflet slammed in your face, which is mindfulness in bold letters? Where are you going to go that isn't, go practice this yoga and this thing and that thing and this puja and that? Where are you going to go? That's the issue.
Is it possible that people might develop a sense for those who've seen the truth? In the sense, I'm sitting here, and it's a sense. I can't explain it. That I feel that you've seen it, and there's something So won't that sense be there that someone's got it?
I mean, yeah, but I'm not talking just to you, right? I'm talking you as a part of all humans. So let's say that there are 100 humans, right, in the world, that or 1,000. There's not, but let's just say for discussions like that there is. Um, that's fine. You know that I exist, but the other 99 or 999 don't. And so I'm not anything special, right? But the only I'm just answering your question because you asked it. Um, where are they going to go? I don't think this is. I don't think that the direness of this is really realized. And one thing that isn't realized because no one's really in dire straits to look for the truth. So that's why it isn't realized. But if they were, let's say that they were, um, there really is nowhere to go because everywhere you turn, there's no direction that you can turn. There's no guru that you can go to, no matter how holy, who isn't going to prescriptionize the hell out of you. That doesn't exist on the earth. That isn't, and even if it did, even if such people did exist, they would eventually cower to those who came to them because those who came to them would demand prescriptions. Buddha gave prescriptions. Jesus gave prescriptions. And these are the two shining emblems of mankind, of what a human can become. Glorious beacons of inspiration for all humans. Jesus and they were prescribing left and right. Once again, they didn't have any negative intent, obviously. So where are you going to go? I keep saying that because those are the words which keep coming to my mouth. It's like everywhere you turn, there's no truth. Not because there isn't a desire to want to help you, but it just isn't there. It's all been bastardized. It's all been the human brain is twisted. The student and the teacher, they're both, the brain is twisted in their head, meaning that they are oriented towards prescription. They aren't oriented towards raw truth. Because if the teacher gave raw truth, guess how many students he'd had? None. They would understand him. So that's my answer to your question. Even if, by some cataclysmic event, 100 people in the world wanted truth, where the heck are they going to go?
What if they came to you? Would you help them out?
I don't try to help anybody, but the situation has to be correct. And I don't, but even if I was, I guess I'm using you as sort of a bouncing board to, to show a bigger picture, that
just the state of affairs, right? I'm using your example that you're bringing up just to reflect a bigger, more holistic light on the situation. Um, the fundamental question you ask: can truth be shown to a human being? Absolutely, absolutely, no question. No spirituality, no woo woo, no nonsense, no robes and crap. No, practical, down to earth, 100%, absolutely, all the time. But the human who really wants that, just they're not walking around.
Firstly, I would just like to say thank you for sharing all that you do. And I don't mean to be an opposing force here, but assuming we're in a forum of direct truth here, I just want to say that I wholeheartedly disagree with the previous speaker's premise that the only way we can get truth is from somebody else. Because despite you sharing truth with us all day long in these forums and in your discourses, what is very clear to me, at least, is that I can be exposed to truth, but if I don't choose to see, that sight doesn't become an understanding of my own bones, and therefore.
I as I told the other person, I would never say that one way is the only way, but at the same time, having said that, in response to what you said, I will not say that if you are not exposed to truth, that you will never, that you can never have any truth. I will never say that, because some people can just come upon it intuitively, through their own ingenuity, through their own desire. So that's 100% always possible. But having said that, if one does not, and yet at the same time, they're not even exposed, and they don't get it through their own intuition or desire or whatever it may be, then it may be the only way, that if they get it through exposure or through somebody else.
If I can now lead into my question, I've noticed in myself a almost lifelong addiction to chasing the next insight and breakthrough to transform my life into something that is more congruent and pure. And I didn't always see that as a chase. I saw that as a sincere pursuit of truth. And recently I've come to recognize it more as a chase. And what has emerged in my mind as a result is that what myself and people may be seeking more than a transformational insight is permission to be free to be who we already are rather than transform. And I was hoping you could perhaps just speak more to what is preventing such permission.
Well, it depends what you mean by who we really are. What does that mean?
Well, the truth of who one is already, the truth of.
But does one know who or what one is? That's a big assumption. It would be one thing if you knew and then you said that's enough, and that now that I know what I am or who I am, that I want permission to be that. That's one thing, but that's a very big assumption.
Well, I guess my statement is coming from my context of the very recognition of the futility of chasing the breakthroughs is from recognizing that the futility of the mask that I've been chasing, and that futility has been bringing into focus who I truly am, in the sense of what I desire beyond that mask. And
well, the futility of what you've been chasing, you have seen through. Apparently, you've seen through the futility of seeking prescriptions, feeling that prescriptions you thought would get you somewhere, and they apparently did not.
So that would be seeing through the prescription chase. That's fine. But how does that relate to seeing through who you are? What does that have to do with you? That has to do with your approach, and that has to do with the way that you pursued it and what you were pursuing. Prescription didn't work, so that seeing through that I understand. But going beyond that, what then?
I guess in my case, it's been primarily seeing through the chase of prescriptions that would lead to, let's call it, various forms of validation. And recognizing that all these different forms of, let's call it, validation or success milestones leads to a place where the emptiness never leaves. And upon recognizing that more and more through my own experiences, I'm simply suggesting that it is bringing to my awareness what I'm genuinely have the capacity for devotion to, what feels more like a devotion than a
And for you that is what?
Well, in my specific case, for the last 18 years, it has been seeking to understand the truth about human fulfillment. And I don't have unfortunately, I don't have a better word for guiding or coaching, but that has just been what is spontaneous for me.
But that's after you saw through your chase of prescriptions. You said that gave you a clearer picture that you were more devoted to what?
To this form of coaching, but in a way that is
to this form of you giving coaching or receiving coaching?
Giving.
So how you're giving coaching based upon what? If you've seen through prescriptions, then how are you coaching then?
Why that's why I said the word coaching is a tricky word. Let's call it guidance.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't. If with all due respect, you can call it whatever you want. It's going to be coaching.
I don't articulate this. I hear what you're saying. It's just I'm trying to articulate that whilst I had delusions of transformation being some approximation of self-improvement, I can recognize the futility of coaching from that perspective and projecting my own fantasies as such of transformation onto others. I'm here speaking to the systematic realization of the difference between the empty chase of transforming myself into some better version compared to the I don't know what the word here is, like the different definition of transformation of
no. What I am saying is whatever word that you're using. Do you think it would be wrong to call what you do coaching? However you want to, whatever word you want to dress it up as.
Sorry, you broke up there. Do I think it's wrong to call coaching?
I'm saying whatever word you want to use for what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I mean, that's all up to you. But
my apologies, I lost signal there.
I'm saying whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you want to call it, I think you're going to have to look at it and see, is it really not coaching?
Sure, I understand that. I guess I'm speaking to the very premise of your question there. That is my understanding about like what is prescriptive and what would you call the guidance that you give your clients?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question.
Your
I mean, you can
sincere
stump me
clients.
there. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I don't know. But I can, with every drop of blood in my veins, I can tell you, I coach no one. I don't come within 1,000 miles of it, and that isn't good or bad. And I don't recommend to you that you shouldn't do it or it's wrong or whatever it is. I just have no interest in it. But if you ask me what it is that I do, I have no idea. It's just kind of, I don't know. But I absolutely abhor coaching.
What was being discussed previously. So I think what I received from you was a lens to then filter out the truth in any given book which claims to be the truth, like the Gita, where there's a lot of things that you can sort of filter out after you get that lens of truth. So I think what um, I got from you as a truth seeker was the lens to sort of filter out the prescriptions and to almost like predict what exactly Krishna would have said in that moment. So yeah. So yeah, I'm grateful for your work. Um, Coming to my question, it's sort of related to surrender. So I know one cannot bring about surrender, and I would just be playing mind games if I wanted to bring about surrender. But can a human being exist in a permanent state of surrender?
The problem with these things is that they're all conceptualized. These are concepts, and they're not good or bad or right or wrong. They're given a name after the fact, and the problem is that when you give them a name before the fact, they become left as only the name. They become left as only the concept. So at the end of the day, what happens is that you begin chasing concepts and ideas of things as opposed to the thing itself. So can a human being live as surrender? I guess, yes. I mean, but the problem is, no sooner has the sentence been spoken, but the person begins to go start practicing it. And as soon as he starts practicing it, he fails. Because whether he realizes it or not, what he is practicing is a concept. It is a chase. It is a chase for a concept. It is a chase to do things correctly. As a result, it isn't real. So all these names and these words and these things, and while as a human being we must use words to communicate, yes, but what must be realized is that all of these things are concepts, and the real thing is the real thing, and the concept is the concept, and to treat one as if it was the other just leads to a lifelong chase of practices which really don't get anyone anywhere.
Hello. Having realized various truths about life and the superficial ways in which people live in the society, I've lost the reference to the normal way in which people in my own household live. And by watching them live in this disgusting way day in and day out, produces reactions which I am unable to control. How does one keep a reference to truth and the superficial ways in which people around me live so that I don't get constantly harassed in a way?
Truth has nothing to do with looking at others. Truth has nothing to do with how other people act or respond. Truth is internal. Truth is between you and your interiority.
Hi. Firstly, thank you for all of your work. I don't think I can express the depth of my gratitude for it, so I guess I'll just leave it at that and move on to my question. Thank you. I guess my question revolves around my relationship with my parents, and it's not a question completely dissimilar to the last question. Firstly, I'm deeply grateful for what my parents have done for me and what they continue to do for me. But at the same time, I don't even, I have no interest in talking to them. I have no interest in being around them because everything that they do and say is fundamentally untruth. The things that they are interested in. I mean, I guess the most direct way to say it is that they are societal, hook, line, and sinker in every single way. Almost everything that they say is, virtually everything that they say is rife with conditioning. And while I'm deeply grateful for what they've done, the fact that they've raised me, I guess I'm not exactly sure what a peaceful relationship with them would look like, because I don't even really want to talk.
It is very similar to the last question, and I don't think the answer was truly imbibed, not just the words, but the essence of the answer. And you speak as if they're conditioned, they're conditioned and they're societal, and nobody else is. So according to that logic, then you shouldn't talk to anybody.
The truth is, they're virtually the only people I have contact with, and that's also just because we live in the same household.
Right, and so at least, at the very least, I mean, it is a distraction and it is time waste to try to find truth in others, or to try to expect that others will even have interest in truth. It is not about anyone else. So at the very least, when one associates with the world, one gains pain from the world. And the majority of that pain comes through the exposure to conditioning, which extends and deepens one's own conditioning. But at the very least, your parents have given you something. While I'm sure they have, most parents, create pain as well as benefit. So that's how everyone is. No one is Jesus. So
at least you have gotten some benefit from them. They have done much for you. So, as you have stated, so, then that is the realm and that is the lens through which you must view them, as opposed to viewing them as conditioned and societal, and though it may be, then that is the case for every single human being. So in the end, it isn't about if others are societal and others are conditioned, of course, but the greatest elephant in the room is that you are societal and you are conditioned until you no longer are, and that is the focus of one's attention, not upon others being so.
I've read in one of your private, I think, discourses that there are many ways to get rid of the mind, and that when you work with your private clients, that you try to sneak up on the mind. And I was wondering if there is a way to do that without your guidance. Thank you.
Everyone is a human being unto themselves. Everyone has the ability to do whatever they want for themselves. So I don't, I cannot tell you how, because I don't know how. There is no how to it. It's, how does the wind blow? Can you do it without my guidance? Anyone can do anything. So I never say you should come to me or read what I write, or I go out of my way, and because I don't think anyone needs to be dependent upon me, or having said that, the conditioning in human beings is so deep. It is so deeply a part of their bloodstream that it is often it rarely happens that someone does find it on their own. So I have to state both. I have to state that the truth is that one absolutely 100% can do it on their own. It is also the truth that the conditioning is so deep that it is not surprising that almost no one is able to do so on a practical level.
If a person has the DNA and the body mind is ready to some extent, or they've done whatever they could do, then what decides whether the person sees the truth?
I cannot tell you what decides it. Either one does or one doesn't. If it's like anything else, if one has a deep desire for something, then they go off and try to find it. Naturally, they will, because they really want X. If they don't, then they try to find someone to help them. Or they find something they can read that can help them, or they have to get it from, if they don't have to get it from somewhere, but if that desire is deep enough, then they will want to desperately get it from somewhere, whether it is from themselves or from another source. If neither of those things, if one, despite multiple efforts, has not gotten in on their own, it doesn't mean that more efforts won't work. They could, but humans are unserious people. That they call themselves logical, but they're not logical. They don't behave in logical manners. So if someone wants X, this is basic as it gets. If someone wants X, and they try and try and try, and years go by, and they don't get the X, but they still desire it, then they have to try to get it from a different source through some kind of guidance. If they don't do that, and they aren't able to get it on their own, then all they're left with is their desire, which isn't getting fulfilled. And that's fine too, but that's up to them. The assumption was that the desire is deep and they really want it. So if you're not getting it on your own and you're not getting guidance from it, then everything else is philosophy and chit chat, right? It's just chit chat. It's just talking about it. It's just one day and then asking a question and then it's all philosophy. It's about getting somewhere. To me, everything's about getting somewhere, whether it's in materialism and money and business and success in that domain, or getting somewhere and finding peace or freedom or the end of conflict, or in those domains. Whatever it is, it's completely and utterly up to whatever the person wants. But if you aren't getting it, if you aren't able to do it on your own, and you're not seeking guidance in a serious way, then you're not really serious, and that isn't a crime either. That's not a crime. But then what are you doing?
Hey, Kapil. Um, First of all, thanks for all your writings. They're very insightful. In discovering your writings, I have been able to tap in a lot of truths for myself. However, I find I struggle with prescriptionizing some of your words. And in asking questions about that and, searching deep within where that is concerned, the only solution that has come up for me is to give your writings a break so I can start to discover more within myself that from a more pure place. Does that make sense? It's something I kind of struggle with wanting to
No,
do. So
that makes sense. That makes sense. Uh, that's fine. Every human being prescriptionizes my words. There's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, whatever your sincere attempt is to stop prescriptionizing, not because it's wrong or bad, just because you want to or have seen the value in it, then your question is, does that make sense? Yes, that makes sense.
Is there a way to act without the mind's permission or the desire, or is there a way to manufacture a desire? Because I, it's evident that whatever I do is just because of desire and because of the environment or the conditioning it is, and I have to uh, go back through the process of Atman again and again, um, exposing myself to the truth. I mean, is there a I'm confused, but um, is there a way like I'm panicking, but is there a way like to short? Break out of the circuit of the mind, knowing that it's mind that is bothering me always, and
Yes, the answer to your question is yes, there is. But I think you realize, or I think you understand, that there's no prescribed way. Another way of asking, is there a way, is can it be done? And absolutely. But not through the realm that tradition has taught people, not through the realm of do X or Y or Z. There's no way that way. And then one will ask, well, then what's the way? And when one asks, what's the way? They are asking for an X, Y, and Z. And then when we'll say, well, if I can't ask for X, Y, and Z, then what is the way? And the way is something which emerges. The way is something that is not a defined thing. It is something that happens. It is really for the rarest of people and the reason for that is not because one is special. It's for the rarest of people because the rarest of people are serious. The rarest of people step up to the plate and are willing to do what needs to be done in order to um, be exposed to the truths that are necessary for them to get where they want to go. those types of humans are virtually non-existent in the world. It isn't a good thing or a bad thing. That's just the state of affairs. And as one of the previous callers talked about, that that person has a desire to, or they feel they have the DNA, and yet there's nothing but chit chat going on because the person hasn't found it themselves. At the same time, they're not serious about seeking guidance. So that shows you how serious you are. What one does shows one how serious one is. Everyone's a talker. Everyone likes to sound spiritual. Everyone likes to ask questions. No one really comes to the point of, I'm ready to do what needs to be done and understand. And they're just talk. Everyone is basically a poser. Not because they were born that way, not because something's wrong with them, just because the number of human beings on this planet who are actually serious, you can count on one hand.
Hi, Kapil. We've heard a lot about children asking about their parents, and having concerns with their parents. But as a parent, having to educate a child and choose an educational path for a child, what question or what realization did you come to when having to make that choice?
It isn't about me.
It's about the child. I understand. But in the world of Ivy League schools, in the world of SATs and all this other nonsense, it feels that what I have to make a choice for my child. What path or what question or what realization do I need to get to be able to make the right choice?
That's a fair question. It really is about swimming in the current of societal conditioning. And, one has to navigate the notion of what the child wants and will ultimately want. Some, parts of that cannot be known necessarily. So I think one has to move with one's greatest convictions, and not that their convictions are necessarily correct or incorrect. If you swim in the soup of what's the right thing to do, I don't think that one really is able to keep their head above water in swimming in that particular pond. I guess one has to go with whatever their own convictions are. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have a secret writing in the lineup that speaks to some of that last question.
Hi, Kapil. Thanks for doing this. I've been a product designer in tech for about 8 years now, and I've been having trouble understanding if I have a talent for this or not, and whether or not I'm being true to myself about, if this is the career or the craft for me. And I've been, I guess I wanted to ask you for some sort of if there's for clarity or if there's something I'm not understanding about what I do and whether or not how much I like it or not.
No, I can't tell you that, but the very fact that you're raising the question means that there might be something there to be explored.
Hi, Kapil. Sorry for the delay. Sometimes you say that truth can be achieved through a systematic endeavor or a systematic inquiry. Is that not a prescription?
Is there anything that I say that cannot be prescriptionized? Even that you're going to call a prescription? What's your point? That I shouldn't speak?
No, when you say like systematic endeavor or systematic inquiry is needed for to arrive at the truth, maybe I think that okay, maybe I can do something systematic because if there is no prescription, I just want to.
But you can do something systematic. You can do what you want to do. Like no one has you in handcuffs and putting you, with a gun to your head saying you can't do anything. No one's telling you that. But that that is a universal response that I have, because it's true. I mean, I can't, I'm not going to go against it because it's not, because just to make it sound different. It's just true. Um, People ask questions. It's kind of like, I give the analogy that people ask the kind of questions that, they come on these forums, or they, whatever it is, and they, okay, well, like, they ask questions that are similar to this. Okay, you have 5 seconds. Tell me how I can become great. Okay, like, it's stupid, nonsensical questions. Because these kind of questions are entertained, and they're supported by the experts who give nonsense answers to nonsensical questions. I don't, because I don't get any interest. I have any interest in doing that. If someone wants to be great, if someone wants to achieve peace or freedom or whatever it is, something, these are not small things, and I don't believe in small things. These are not small things. And in order to achieve these are like these are like generational things that virtually no human in the history has ever achieved. So there's no like podcast answer to these kind of questions, and they're fair to ask in terms of one's desire to achieve such things. That's fine. But well, how can it be that it doesn't require a systematic journey? It requires. I mean, I have clients that, uh, we've been going through this for years, and they still have only moved like 5%. Now that's 5% than anyone else has moved, but that's not a competition. But the point is, even after years, while they have gotten X, Y, and Z from it, uh, it requires a systematic journey. That's what we have been on, in a repeated exposure to truth and diving deep into their mind and disassembling all of the conditions, the conditionings, and the poisons that have seeped into their bloodstream. Uh, This is serious stuff. I mean, I I'm really annoyed by unserious people. I don't like unserious people. They annoy me. I don't think they're worth talking to. They're not. So serious people are worth speaking to. Serious people are worth having a journey with. Everyone, like I said before, everyone's a poser. So how can something, once again, you're an intelligent human being. You're not dumb. Okay. So how can something that is so rarefied not require a systematic journey? Whether it is, like you said, by oneself, perfectly, absolutely, or by seeking guidance. Either way, there's no right with one or wrong with the other. But if neither is happening, that's fine too. But then if neither of those is happening, then the desire must not be there, which is also fine too. But the person states that they do have the desire. So either they're lying, or that the desire isn't great enough. Something's got to give. And having said all of that, nothing is one. There's not even any evil in being a poser. There's no evil in that. That's fine. You can be whatever you want. But how can it not require a systematic journey? How can one possibly expect? Because if someone came on the podcast and they asked, like, okay, you got 5 seconds, tell me how to become a professional athlete and how to become the greatest in the world. Everyone, even the most unserious person, would listen to that and say, what a nonsense question. Everyone would say that. And yet, when it comes to these things, because everyone is supported and enabled by the spiritualists who give easy, stupid answers to these things. Oh, do some meditations and mindfulness, because they actually entertain these things. Then the human feels that they are not asking how to become great in 5 seconds. Well, that's exactly what they're asking. In fact, it's way, way more of a systematic journey to achieve peace or freedom than it is to become a professional athlete, or to become a great businessman, or to become rich, or to become. Those are actually more on the materialistic side, on the mechanical, technical side. They're not purely that way, absolutely not. But this is like has nothing to do with that. This is like 10 Everests beyond that. And that's ironic that the spiritualists actually dumb this down as if it's the smallest thing in the world when it's the biggest thing in the world. And what gives proof to that is even the spiritualists haven't achieved. Those who are prescribing these things haven't achieved anything themselves either because it doesn't work. So, logically speaking, how can it not require a deep systematic journey? If one has accumulated years and years and decades of conditioning and poison and wrong things, and they've operated their life and they have set up their entire foundation of their life, the fulcrum of their life, the foundation of their life is based upon things that are not true. I'm not talking about beliefs here and there. I'm talking about the entire daily existence of their life is sitting upon a foundation that is a lie, that is not true. That doesn't require a systematic journey. That just requires some tips and tricks. Really? That doesn't require going into the foundation and breaking apart all the nonsense over years. That doesn't. There's no tips and tricks for that. There's no. There's no prescription for that. So if there was a prescription, then there will be no systematic journey required. Which is exactly where everyone is. Everyone in the entire world is in the prescription land, trying to use prescriptions. They don't even know there's a foundation of lies, right? Humans don't even recognize that their entire life is based upon a foundation of lies, of untruths, of things that are simply not so. They don't even recognize that. They're just seeking more prescriptions, and that makes sense because when one lives upon a foundation of lies, when one's entire life is structured and sitting upon a foundation of fundamental untruths, that is going to lead to anxiety and fear and conflict and turmoil and disappointment and all these things. And no human wants to feel bad and suffering, and no one wants to feel that way. So they'll do whatever they can. So they'll seek the prescriptions. Why wouldn't they? The alternative would be just to be suffering all the time. And so they're going to do whatever. If a human being is drowning, he's going to do whatever he can to keep his head above water. That makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't he? But I think the fundamental lack of understanding is the fundamental lack of exposure. There's been an exposure to prescriptions and nothing else. There's been no exposure to truth.
Hi, Kapil. Thank you for doing this. I have a question about beliefs, and I don't know how to navigate it and distinct it from truth, I guess. I don't know. But like, I'll just try to take an example for it. We have these greatest athletes. We have Michael Jordan, who believes that they have to work hard to be, or they have a belief of doing a certain thing to be where they want to be. All of these greats have their own way to get to. They believe that they have to do things in a certain way to get to a place where they want to be. Is this their own truths? Does everyone have their own truths?
That's a fair question. I think if there's a desire to get somewhere, one will do whatever one can. If the desire is sufficiently deep, one will do whatever one can to get to there. They'll use whatever tools they have to get there. And if belief helps them, then so be it. Belief, when I speak about it, really is in the realm of like believing things that are not true. Picking up things from the world and the experts, and then believing them, or siding with a certain faction, or believing in a particular religious institution versus another, and waving that flag and condemning other religions. I mean, so like belief in that sense, that which is internal to oneself, to fulfill one's desire, one uses whatever tools one has. So whatever it is, it is.
Thank you, Kapil, for all the work. It is difficult to put into words all my gratitude I have
for your work. For a little bit of context, I've grown up in the knowing of what you speak and luckily been able to be quite removed from the world and its influence. So growing up, I stayed very deep in my sincere quest. And I've seen a lot of truths ever since I was introduced to your work throughout my own experience. So thank you. In this moment, when I've had a chance to ask a question from you, I've realized that I actually have nothing to ask. All the problems are just daily fires, which in these moments fade away. And while I pursue my craft, my art, I have a clear vision of when it's done, how it looks like, what the arrival looks like. But the need to have it that way ruins the whole journey. Even though every time I arrive to the perfect result. Is the lack of looking into this for myself the reason why it still persists?
What persists?
I guess the need, or I once heard you say that perfection is the state of being perfect, while perfectionism is the need to be perfect. And that's something that I try to understand, or while I pursue my craft.
I don't really understand your question.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I want to have is what you have, and while pursuing my sincere quest, having the mind or the anxiety or the need to arrive to the vision or whatever the arrival looks like, kind of ruins the whole journey to get there. Or so I guess I want to have it without the need, you know.
And do you think there's something that I can tell you that'll make you get rid of the need?
No, definitely not. I think that's why I said I guess there's really
And
nothing.
and that's right. I mean, what's going on here is that there's a hole, there's a problem, and you have recognized that there's no prescriptive solution to that problem. But having said that, that doesn't take away the problem. The problem still exists, and therefore you're doing the only thing that you can, which is to express in your own way that the problem exists, not knowing what to do about it, but at the same time knowing that there's no prescription for it. And this is exactly my point. Like everyone makes this point without even realizing they're making it. This is exactly my point. So you have a problem, and you at least have come to the point where you recognize that it seems that there's no prescriptive answer to it. There's no prescriptive solution to it. But having said that, that's fine, but that doesn't take away your problem. And that's exactly why it requires a systematic journey. And a systematic journey is not 5 steps, right? Like I can't even predict what happens in systematic journeys. It's different. It's different with everyone. It's organic, and things arise and disappear, and all these things. What you find when you go deep into someone's mind, it's not predictable. So that's exactly so. Like, where else? There's that is the only thing left, right? Okay, before one recognizes the futility of prescriptions, they seek prescriptions. Fine, they never get anywhere. And then I'm talking about in non-mechanical, non-technical things. And then they may happen to stumble upon my work and see, that prescriptions, or, that I talk about the futility of prescriptions. And then they might prescriptionize that and say, okay, well, I'm not going to say prescriptions. Well, that doesn't do anything, because that's just prescription. To read my work and say, oh, he's saying no prescriptions, that also is a prescription. So it's not about that. It's about seeing it for yourself, not believing me. And so then one may realize that, so there are no prescriptions that can help me get out of this. So then one is at the crossroads. One is at a dead end. Okay, to the left, he realizes that okay, there's no prescriptions. He realized, but to the right, he realizes, having said that, my problems are still there. So there's only one thing remaining, and that's a systematic journey to go into the depth of these things in order to address them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's left, and just one must do. I'm just saying that's the only serious way. That is for serious people. In fact, that is the only way to arrive at the end of one's. That's the only true solution. And like that isn't even a solution. Like there's not even that isn't a solution in terms of you do this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing there is. Everything else is swirling muddy water, putting on ointment, putting on band-aids. And while none of that is wrong, one must do whatever they can to get some relief. Sure, I understand. But to seek the end of one's problems, to truly unravel one's problems, that isn't for like I said before, humans aren't walking around thinking like that. They're walking around putting ointment on one's problems forever.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
I do my best to think my question. Can a person even not care that his mind is going like crazy? It's just schizophrenic and it's just constantly talking. Is it possible to even not care?
Yes, yes, it is possible. I mean, things are possible that humans cannot even conceive of. The problem is like, okay, I said that it's possible, right? So what? So what that it's possible? Like, you're not gonna like do anything about it. I don't mean to be presumptuous, but you're not. Like, I just so what? Okay, he said it's possible. Okay, now let's go on with my life. Like, it's just it's Trivial Pursuit. Like, who cares if it's possible or not possible? No one's gonna do it. So like, everyone's a poser. I mean,
it's more like I'm trying to come up with a question. Like I'm trying my best.
Why do you want to ask a question? You already asked your question. You already expressed. You already expressed what your, the issue is.
I'm trying to. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm trying. I don't know. I don't even know where to go. But I don't. Yeah.
I think if someone doesn't know where to go, like there are several things that you could say to human beings that are universal, right? I mean, one of the places to go is like, stop being a poser. And even me having said that, in the very same breath, I want to take it back, because me saying stop being a poser is prescriptive. So that's not going to do anything, So like, what's someone going to say? Oh yeah, you're right, I'm a poser, so I'm going to stop right now. No, it's not going to happen. So human beings are like cement. They're not reachable. They're too lost in their own nonsense. And even that would be fine. The fundamental problem is that they're unserious. That's why they're all posers.
Good day, Kapil. My question is, if I'm unserious and I realize that and I see that as an issue, and I know there is nothing I can do about it, and what kind of question can I put to resolve that? Like, in what way can I approach that?
I think it depends upon the depth of one's pain. If you had red ants crawling on your skin, there is no way that you would be unserious You wouldn't sit, if you had red ants crawling on your skin, you wouldn't call the experts and say, can you give me 5 steps to get rid of the ants? Now, you might if they were in your house, because then you want them out of your house, but you still have some time. And that wouldn't even be wrong, because that is still to some degree technical and mechanical. But if they're crawling on your skin, you have no time. You have 0 time. So you would not be unserious. And the reason that you would not be unserious is because you would have a desperation and a true and deep and unparalleled desire to get rid of those red ants. So the reason that humans are unserious is because they don't like suffering, but then they have been conditioned into believing that if they just practice a bunch of 5 steps that they can alleviate things. And since that's the only message that they hear, that's gotten into their bone marrow. So they don't really know that anything else is possible.